Welcome, everybody, to the newest episode of All Things NBA, presented by Ball is Life. I'm Chris Persian, and here alongside the freshly surgerized Zach Noble. No, we're not talking about procedures. We're talking about that haircut, man. Oh, my. So if you're watching on YouTube, you see our video pods that we always have available. You see Zach's fresh-ass cut right now, and we are here to talk today about the start of this 2024 NBA season. It's time to give our predictions for the Eastern Conference, how we think the standings are going to go down, teams 1 through 15, you name it, how this is going to shake out. Zach, we start at the bottom, right? I mean, that was our plan, but I want the listeners to get a peek behind I want the listeners to get a peek behind the curtain here at how we planned this out. So
I do have to ask you, when you said cut, did you mean my hair or the cut on my nose? Because I got a magnet tile thrown at my face the other day, and we're getting sliced and diced. But yeah, 15 through 1. Let's let it rip.
All right, man. Well, listen, for me personally, at 15, it was simple. When you're picking a team to finish last, of course you're thinking tanking, everything of the above. The Charlotte Hornets, man, are just in a really, really brutal spot as an organization right now. And when I'm thinking about game in, game out, teams that are going to have an internal desire to compete for all 48, I think Steve Clifford does a good job of cultivating that kind of culture, but it hasn't shown on the court. And the reason I say that is because they're not good, and LaMelo Ball, pretty much all potential still. I think that he has shown a lot on the court in terms of being an offensive option, like a really good offensive option. The problem, we have not yet seen his defense balance that out. We have not yet seen him have the teammates where his creation for others is impactful enough to balance that out. Yes, he gets you a lot of easy buckets, but he's about to play with like a legit center for the first time this season if Mark Williams is ready to go. So I've got them last. I am going to fade them. I'm going to fade their desire to win and their motivation. And I'm going to just venture to guess that this is your worst team in the Eastern Conference, not because I don't think they're talented enough to be better than it, but because I think game in, game out, this is a team whose season motivationally ends early.
So I can accept that. But I have 11 through 15 in my tier 4. I have 4 tiers in the Eastern Conference. I can really accept any team in this order. They're not my number 15. It might shock you. They finished 14th last year, and I'll tell you my reasoning why, but mainly is LaMelo only played like 28 games. What was it? Yeah, 36 games. And then a lot of other injuries otherwise. And so they didn't have Miles Bridges all year. I think they're getting better, but a team that got worse to me, that definitely moved to the barrel of the bottom. And I truly think this team has like all-time worst team in Eastern Conference history potential. I'm not saying they're going to do it. I'm not predicting that, but I think they could. The team with Jordan Poole and Kyle Kuzma as their leaders, believe in their depth, believe in their fit, what have you. But like Kyle Kuzma, to me, has barely been a winning player as a 5th, 6th man on a team, on a great team. And the only way he's a winning player is if his team's absolutely loaded. Other than that, he puts up very empty stats, in my opinion. I just think he's a guy that's out collecting a check and trying to put up the best stats possible. And Jordan Poole, I believe, is going to be the best player on this team. I don't want my boy Mike Muscala to drown on this team. I think he's going to bring a veteran leadership, what have you. I like Bilal. I like him coming in. I thought that was a decent pick. I just think the friction between Jordan Poole and Denny Avdija already is real. In the preseason. So I think
I saw that clip.
There's going to be a ton of that. The Poole will go from 41 one night to 7 the next, like he did in the preseason. And I just don't believe in their coach, one. I don't believe in anybody on this team besides, call me crazy right now, as Muscala is the only winner on this team. And that's hard to even say, really. But Jordan Poole, yes.
Jordan Poole.
Of course he's a winner, but he's a winner as a 6th man, 5th man,
Ring
4th
on the
man,
finger,
whatever you have
man.
him. But he's number 1. He's the number 1 option on this team. And so you think about I'm not in the category of him taking that James Harden leap where people are throwing out a take like that. I think he's not the playmaker James Harden ever was. Maybe he can turn into that eventually, but it's not going to be year one.
Yeah, I don't see a Harden lead for him either. I do think he can play. I do think he can initiate offense. I think Kuzma can play. Kuzma can absolutely play. Man,
Oh,
and
I'm not saying they're a terrible player.
that deal he signed this offseason, I think, is demonstrative of how guys get valued when they're, a better option on their team than they should be, right? But that doesn't make him a negative. I think this Washington team is going to be scrappy. Um, Listen, I know they don't have Hachimura anymore. I know they're banking on some offensive growth from Avdia. I know they'll be giving reps to Koulibaly. Um, and yeah, man, that's why I have them pretty low.
Yeah,
But
and your next team, but
my next team, are we ready to pivot?
sure.
So my next
Unless you
team
have anything.
is the Detroit Pistons.
All right. Well, I'm locked in there with you. We'll
So I don't have
fly the
Washington
Pistons.
at 14 or 15. The reason I've got Detroit at 14 is not because I don't think Cade Cunningham is going to have a nice season for himself. It's not because I don't think that Jaden Ivey will flash some utility as a cutter and an off-ball asset. It's not because I don't think that Osar Thompson is going to be freaking awesome. He is. That's what he's going to be. Jalen Duren is freakishly talented for a player that plays the position and has the size that he does. I could keep going on about this Pistons team and the fact that they have some players that I like. The problem is the full list and how they fit with each other. Basketball, a lot of people might see a basketball team as an assortment of snacks, right? You got the Mike and Ike's and you got the pizza bites and the Lil bites on the side, and you want some carbs, you want some sugary, like you want a little bit of everything, right? Here's my problem, Zach. You go take a bite of a chocolate chip muffin and then have a Mike and Ike after, and then have an orange, sour, like orange sour candy. That shit's terrible. That does not taste good. A basketball team has to be more like, what's like the most ludicrous analogy I could drop on you right now? A basketball team has to be more like a charcuterie board, Zach.
Mm.
It's got to be a plethora of options. You want to have as much scheme versatility as possible, and you want it all to fit together. If I take a grape with a cheese, it works, right? Because Quickly can play with Brunson. But if I want to have the different cheese in Grimes and I want to pair it with crackers instead, well, we have Julius Randle and we have, like the way I think about it is everything's got to go with everything. And I'm not saying, you're going to go to a charcuterie board and take two different cheeses and smush them together, and that's going to be your fine dining, right? That's why you don't play two centers on the court at once, or you don't play two point guards that are both tiny, right? But things mostly have to go together. And with the Detroit Pistons, I see it more as a cacophony than a symphony. I think these pieces are conflicting, and I don't think they lift each other up at their core. So my problem with Detroit is with a new head coach, with a lot of money, with expectations to get some wins on the board, I think they fall short of being a team that dominates the margins. I think they fall short of being a team that has versatile schemes to throw at teams. I think they end up being, not too much of a league pass draw, even though Ivy and Osar are super exciting young players. So I've got Detroit at 14.
Man, I'm glad you went first because I couldn't agree more. It's all about the fit for me. And I do agree you can have a non-fitting team if you're like the greatest team of all time. And you just got the great, like the Phoenix Suns, for instance, if they stayed healthy this year. Like I don't think those guys are perfect fits. They're pretty good fits. But the talent exceeds the fit. That's the only way I'll say that. But yeah, it is not pretty, especially with the Cade, Ivy, Osser trio. And I think that's their future. That's their core. That's their future. And their job isn't to win games this year. It's to figure out who fits and who's got the most talent and upside and how much upside there is. So that's when your job isn't to win games and you don't have to win games. Like people know that going into the year, like teams realize their expectations and coaches coach according to that as well. Monty Williams signed a long-term deal. So I don't think the pressure is going to be necessarily on year one, but yeah, I don't think Boyan will be around very often, and he's going to be a winning player as well. As soon as they start going downhill, he's out of there. I think they'll get a little value for him, and continue on. But main reason too is the fact that Cade Cunningham was injured, but they didn't have a lot of guys missing games compared to like the Charlotte Hornets. That's why I think the Hornets, just due to games played last year from their more talented players, is going to give them a boost. Number 13, that's where I do have the Charlotte Hornets.
Okay.
I do think, just talent wise, I think they upgraded. I mean, I think Mark Williams is only going to get better. LaMelo should get a little better. I'm not a person that's really high on LaMelo. I think he's a really good player. I do think he's going to get better, but to what extent, I'm not sure. Brand Miller, I think, is going to be very good. I'm really high on him. But Terry Rozier, just a solid player. Gordon Hayward. I mean, they're loaded with a lot of good offensive and defensive players. It's just how good are they? How talented is LaMelo and Brand Miller and Mark Williams is their upside? And I'm not like extremely high on their upside, but I think they got pieces there to move the ball forward. So I think 13 is a pretty solid fit for them.
I like that, man. I like it. I do have to say, with Charlotte, when you're banking so much on internal development and it's a team with a lot of guys who either just have not developed because the team doesn't push them to go get better on their own, like, listen, 85 to 80% of development is done at home and is not done in a team owned building, right? I'm of firmly that opinion. However,
Yeah, like in the lab with Mr. Beast, their owner, right?
on a team with situations like Kai Jones and James Bouknight, where you hear things about Bouknight from NBA circles that he's not a reliable bet to improve year to year because of his offseason regimens or the lack of them. Kai Jones, who was just waived for his saga of unfortunate behavior, which I do hope he's all right. Genuinely.
God forbid, hang on to Miles Bridges, right?
Yeah, that is going on, and he was back getting a mugshot just last week. So, how much of him do they get? My question though is what are the Charlotte Hornets doing to push their young players to be better? Are they trying to be a cool organization that just lets the guys come in and work hard with coach, or are they not sending assistant coaches to live with players over the summer, to stay with them, to work with them? That's something the Knicks were very comfortable doing with Mitchell Robinson when they figured he needed a little extra development to stay up to speed with the winning desires of the team. And guess what? He's doing a great job of being a star in his role for them because they put resources into it. I understand 80% of a player's development is done at home, but they need to be motivated by their team to go get better, right? You drafted the guy. It's your responsibility to make sure he's doing what he needs to be doing, we talked about this on the pod. Jalen Suggs was bragging this offseason that he made like 400 shots a day, that he was taking 400 to 500 shots a day, and he was bragging about that. Gil Arenas used to make 1,000 a day. 1,000 makes, not 400 takes. So work ethic to me is really dependent on not only what you're trying to get done yourself, but your team. And I've seen guys like, too many guys come out of Charlotte and be purposed intelligently on another team and take a year or two and turn into someone that can play in a rotation. I'm not talking about start, but just hang in a rotation. That's why I have Charlotte last. Who I have 13th is Washington. And the reason for that is because I do buy the feistiness of this team. I buy the chip on the shoulder. Beal's gone. These young guys on this team have been waiting to play their way for a long time. And guys like Kispert and Avdia are going to get chances to be productive NBA wings. That is, something I think one of them can live up to. I think Avdia can be a decent stand in the corner option. I think Kispert can be a really good one. Denny gives you defense as well. So for this Wizards team, even if Johnny Davis is a non-factor, doesn't play much all year, even if Bilal Coulibaly is a negative in his touches, but he's getting good development, I still think somehow that, between a Gafford, what this team has, I think is enough to stay scrappy with the chip on the shoulder in place of, or rather, because of Beal's departure. I just see them being fun. I see them going out and fighting for wins. I see them winning 1 or 2 more games than Detroit, right? Like, I don't have them staunchly ahead of the Pistons. I had to have some fun there at the end. So I threw Washington a bone. I feel like
I will say,
then where
go for
after
it.
this is where it gets serious though. I feel like we're done with the gutter of the Eastern Conference, which is impressive considering that for a lot of my childhood, it was a conference where you had teams making the playoffs that were under 500.
Yeah, you kind of talked me into it. I really debated making those last three teams here a tier 5 in their own. I think you're right. That is the gutter here. But the two guys, like I want to mention that if this team gets any higher than 15 for me, or even 13, is because of Tyus Jones and Corey Kispert. I think those are two guys that are going to be connecting pieces and going to lead to a lot of wins this year.
I'd
Because you
even
know what you're getting in Jordan Poole and Kuzma. I really
yeah.
do. Can they tie two other winning players at least with them? Johnny Davis is going to get close to 20 minutes a game. I'll be shocked if he doesn't. Will it be 40 games or will it be 70 games? I don't know. But the amount of games he plays, it's going to be close to 20 minutes a game. So take that for what it's worth.
Yeah, I think Washington will be bad. I just also think they'll be fun and feisty. So, I don't think I talk about
Dogs.
I talk about the three F's, right? Fun, feisty, and fine are the keys to being like a productively mediocre team. They're not going to be fine. So they will not be mediocre. They will be bad, but they can be productively bad. That's okay. Number
Fun,
12,
feisty, and fine. I'm going to hang on to that one.
fun, feisty, and just fine.
Texting the wife,
Number 12 for me. Let's talk about the Orlando Magic.
Wow, bro. All right, we're getting into it.
I am not super high on this team just yet. And I'm going to tell you this. Next summer, next fall, we're going to be doing the 2025 preview Eastern Conference standings prediction pod. And I'm going to have them firmly in 7th or 8th. Firmly in a top play-in spot. Okay? Here's my thing for this season. I don't know where the guard play is going to come from. Markelle Fultz is really good. Should he be playing more than 32 minutes a game on a team that you think is going to be decent? Probably not. Who do they have? Anthony Black, to me, was someone I had, roughly in my top 10. I was a decent fan of him, not as much as Sam Vecini or the Orlando Magic or some other people out there, but I did like Anthony Black. I really didn't like the Jet Howard pick. And I do think that both Ant Black and Jet Howard will be rough to start off in their rookie campaigns. Black will have a lot of flashes. I don't think he'll be objectively, like a guy that could be the sixth man or the starter for a good team. He'll be the sixth man or even the starter for the Orlando Magic, and he'll do a good job of that considering it's his rookie season. I'm just being careful about expecting too much from this group too early. I think Paolo and Franz today are really good. That's why I've got this team above Washington, and I've got them above Poole and Kuzma, and I've got them above Cade and Ivy, and I've got them above
Wow, that's
LaMelo
so
Ball.
kind of you. That's so
Right?
kind.
Some guys that are regarded pretty highly. I have this team finishing above them. The thing is that I can't put this team above teams like Brooklyn or Chicago or Indiana. And the reason for that is just because I don't know that the feistiness will equal good. I think the Magic might be more feisty than some of those teams. I don't think that necessarily equals better. I do think Chicago's at a point where that talent, however mediocre it is, has had a little bit to gel. So without getting too ahead of myself, I just want to say the Orlando Magic are going to be a fun team that is setting themselves up for several years of sustained success in the Eastern Conference. My concern with them this season remains that we're jumping the gun, and that we're doing what a lot of NBA fans love to do, which is conflate hype and potential with current skill and ability. And I'm not there yet with some of these guys in Orlando. Paolo is going to be a Hall of Famer. You lock it in today, right?
Oh man,
Franz is going to be really good. Suggs is going to be really good. We talked about this with Albert. But I don't see it this season in regards to them being like a 40-win team, right? So I've got them at 12, and I don't think that's offensive. I want that to be 12 the way that I thought the OKC Thunder would be like 11th last season. We know they're set up going forward. They've got their A tier guy in a Shea or in a Paolo.
love it. So one, I don't think that's a hot take that you have them at 12, but two, I definitely don't have them here. I just want to say they're not going to hold down your 3 Fs. They're going to be feisty, but the one they're missing, what, is fine. They're not going to be fine
No.
because they don't have their point guard. That's fine. Um,
Markel's decent too. I like
right,
him, and he does a great
right.
job at pressuring the rim. The problem is Ant Black can't shoot. So you got to play Markel and someone else, or Ant Black and someone else. And Suggs doesn't necessarily present, I don't know.
I'm going to touch on them because your points are fresh here, but I almost agree with everything you said, which is crazy. And I'm going to tell you why I do have them above this is because they won 34 games last year. Okay. And Jamal Mosley was a rookie head coach. And I do believe in Jamal Mosley. And I think he's going to move the ball only forward. They were actually above average defense or right at average, 15th. That's amazing for how many young players they have. And that's only going to get better as their talent gets better. And I do think they added defensive players. And I think overall, defensively, there should be a top 10 team, especially with Jamal Mosley. Like everything, just if they just
I
play a
can't
normal
I
amount of
can't
games.
expect that much from the rookies this early. I think when you're
But
plugging
they
in
were
two
last year.
rookies
So increasing from 15 to
and you're
even
put but you're
12
you're
to
inserting two rookies into the lineup. Those neither of the two like Chuma Okeke is good, bro. Like
we
you know
don't
what I'm saying?
right. But I don't think many guys from last year are going to be decreasing minutes. I just think a couple of the guys that are off the team those minutes will be replaced by some of these rookies. And here's why I think they're going to be okay without a true point guard or figuring out this point guard and being able to win a bunch of games is because Franz and Paulo can play the point guard position and they can be such great passers and playmakers and connectors. And Wendell Carter Jr. as well. You put 3 guys in there who are great passers and playmakers. That's why you don't need to focus on a point guard and shooting guard that much. It's just hopefully those guys can fit and get the job done. And that's what we're a little concerned about. But Markel, I believe, is going to be very sufficient. I'm not saying they're going to get to 45 wins, but I do think they can get really close to that 40, 42-ish mark. Where that has them on my rankings, time will tell. But the team I have here was at number 12. I have the Brooklyn Nets.
Okay.
That we touched on them. We did a full episode on the Brooklyn Nets.
Go check out the Nets season preview that Zach and I did.
Mainly because they didn't win a ton. They had a losing record with the guys that are on this team going forward this year. Insert Ben Simmons, that's automatically more losses for sure. And I don't think he's going to come out of the woodwork like a lot of people do and just become a winning player instantly in 1 year. It's going to take time if he is. And I only give it like a 20% chance because I'm pretty fully out on Ben Simmons. But Mikal, there's a world where he could get these guys up to a 6 or 7 seed. I think he can be that good. It's just, is he going to be? I'm not thinking it's going to happen this year. Him and Cam Johnson could be a duo to reckon with for a long time. And if they unleash my boy Cam Thomas, I think there's potential there to get to like a 6 or 7 seed. But again, they're my 12 seed. I'm not predicting anything like that this year.
Absolutely, man. So I'll just pivot here. I've got Brooklyn at 11, right ahead of Orlando. Again, I think Orlando wins a couple more games than Washington. I don't think Brooklyn wins a couple more games than Orlando. I think these two are going to be real close here. And the next team I have, I think, is going to be real close with them as well. 30,
Bridges.
35, 37 wins for all these squads, like in that just a rough dart throw right now. But the thing for me with Brooklyn is I think they'll be feisty. I don't think they'll be fun. I do think they'll be fine. So they'll have 2 of my 3 Fs.
I almost agree with that.
I don't think they'll be fun, man. Yeah. Everyone's saying, oh, the Houston Rockets are going to be so fun. You want to watch 30 Fred VanVleet and Dylan Brooks FGA every game? Like, what the hell? That's not fun to me. I'll be watching Tari Eason set screens and defend off the ball. I'll be watching Jalen Green and Amen Thompson be the most athletic backcourt duo possibly of a lot of kids' childhoods over the next couple of years. So I'm really interested in that team for a couple of different reasons. It's not because I think they're going to be fun. So yeah, I don't know that Brooklyn will be fun. I'm into the Nets position in the league right now in regards to recouping their picks, getting out of the KD Kyrie experiment, and just going back to being a normal goddamn team. Um, However, that doesn't mean they're going to be good. So they do need a weird transition year. We'll see what happens with Cam Thomas. We'll see how the storylines go. I do think Jacques Vaughn, you kind of talked me a little bit in that season preview into this team eking out some wins that they shouldn't against teams like, all these guys below them in the standings. So, yeah, I can see it. I'm just not high on them. I do have them as the 11th seed. I have Brooklyn entirely out of the play-in. I do think they're a little feisty, though.
I do think Jacques Vaughn is going to have these guys feisty. And
Let me revise to 33-35 wins for Brooklyn, 32-34
we need a
for
counter.
Orlando.
Somebody's got to be the counter for how many times we say feisty on the show. Chris, you started that. We're rolling already on that late night feistiness here. But Mikal Bridges, I think he's got a chance to be like in the top 10 MVP race, even if they finish like in the top 11. Call me crazy, but he's going to put up those type of stats. I truly believe it. It's like Bradley Beal-ish, for those bad Washington Wizards teams he's been rolling out the last few years. I think that's how people are going to look at him, except this guy with exceptional defense as well. That's just a prediction on my behalf, but I think people are going to really open their eyes this year to Mikal Bridges and just what he can do on a nightly basis. So that's what I'm super excited for. My number 11 team here, it's hard for me because I really do like the pieces and how they fit here. It's just, I don't believe in the talent. I don't believe in the upside at all. And
I know. I already got it.
Who is it?
Indiana.
You nailed it. Boom. 35 wins last year.
I know my co-host, baby. Come on.
Yeah, you clicking already. Barely 10 episodes in. 37-ish wins again this year. Tyrese Halliburton, only way they get any higher is if he becomes a top 20 player. It could happen. It could happen, but Buddy Hield will be on his way out. Miles Turner misses a lot of games, so we'll see how many he plays this year. And Jarris Walker is such a huge question mark to me, and rookies don't win a ton. If Benedict Mathurin was for sure like a huge belief internally, I think he was at the beginning of last year, and then he faded. I think they've regained some over the offseason. They've talked about him a lot. Obviously, they have to. He's a really high draft pick. But I just hope they show that belief early on the court. Don't be pulling him in critical situations and stuff that's going to make and break him. He needs all the trials and tribulations that are going to come his way because I think he can be so incredibly special. I love Benedict Mathurin. I'm so high on him yet, but I don't love the fact that I don't believe Indiana loves him as much as I do.
I'm going to be an ass about the fact that you misspoke. I do want to petition to make turbulations a word. Tribulations,
latest pod we've done.
Turbulent tribulations, make it one word. Zach,
we go.
You innovate and amaze me every day. Listen, man, I really do feel you on Indiana. I get exactly what you're saying, honestly. However, you ever feel like something's so wrong that it might just go right? Like you're like, that team is totally gonna suck. I just can't see it. That's kind of where I'm at with Indiana. I feel like they have so much hype. 95% of bets are on them to win over 41.5 games.
Mm-hmm. People love this team.
People love it. So for me personally, yeah, I'm not super high on them. I don't have them hitting over on that win total, but I do have them pretty close on my list. 10 for me is Chicago. And the reason I'm going with Chicago here is because it's so hard to build a good basketball team with $20 million of practically dead cap. I love Lonzo Ball. The way he plays basketball excites me. I really do like Lonzo Ball, and I think that the way that he defends is something that like should make you love basketball more. Thoughts? Like a rough agree or disagree?
No, I agree.
Yeah, so he's really fun, right? And 6'5", 6'6", guard, but guard's like a wing, but dribbles like a guard. Like that guy's fun. That's a draft Twitter dream nowadays. Got a jumper to fix and everything. Draft Twitter would be fawning over him if he were coming out of the draft this year. The problem for me is that with that much dead cap to account for, it's hard for me to say Levine, DeRozan, Vooch, that trio is going to have its coming out party and finally be impactful in the playoffs, finally make a real push. So I've got them at 10th in my Eastern Conference standings pretty much exclusively because I do think they have some talent. I don't think it fits great, and I don't think they have a lot of talent. So I do think they'll be fine, and I do think they'll be feisty. But how fun will it be to watch them stink again? I just be mediocre again, stink in regards to their expectations, not the team actually being bad. Caruso's really good. What if a team like it wouldn't be Denver or Dallas, but I'm just trying to think of a contender that would make sense. Obviously not
Every team
Boston.
can use him. He's a guy that fits literally on every
Yeah, but
team.
not Boston. I wanted Brooklyn to really go after him. I thought that would have been a great pickup for them at the last deadline. But it makes sense with everything
He's a
they
good
do.
backup for Drew Holiday.
What if a team like Cleveland decides, hey,
They're
God,
deep though.
do we
Cleveland's
need
deep.
some help at the backup guard spots and this Max Strus thing isn't going how we thought it would defensively. We need a little more cover up. They go get a Caruso. Chicago's really left to their own devices. Like that to me reeks of being like a 30-win team if they lose Caruso. I think he swings so much for them. I'm really big on guys' approach into a night by night gamely basis. Like, hey, I'm coming in tonight to do what? All the Knicks players, they have their own desires, but Thibodeau has done a good job of getting that buy-in. Do I buy the Chicago Bulls to be one of those teams where all the guys are bought in on winning games? I'm not sure, right? So I've got them at 10 because I do think the talent gets them up there. I'm not super confident that they'll be good because they haven't been good with this core and they're running it back again,
They're
so
running it back.
yeah, we'll see how that goes for them.
Yeah, so this is probably my biggest shocker throughout everything. They didn't fall a lot, okay? They weren't great in the regular season last year. They could come in at this seed and run through again and surprise me, but the Miami Heat are my 10 seed. And a big part of that is because they lost Gabe Vincent. They lost Max Strus, and I thought those guys were incredibly important for them. And I think Jimmy Butler is going to be really bitter. And I just don't see, like, how many times can he win 44 games and have to play at an elite level and not play 82 games? Like, there's so many variables here that all revolve around Jimmy Butler, and you're banking on rookies to come in and make an impact. I do like their rookies. And one guy I really like in the preseason that I hope he gets a lot of playing time is RJ Hampton. I think he could come in and really maybe end up starting by the end of the year if he gets a real opportunity. I'm not banking on him even getting an opportunity, to be honest, but I was really high on RJ pre-draft, and he did get a lot of tick in the preseason here. But Miami, I mean, Kyle Lowry's just washed and getting worse by the minute. Tyler Hero played most of last regular season, okay? And they only won 44 games. Jimmy Butler is just always good for missing 15 games. That's who Jimmy Butler is. So there is no really high upside on this team. They haven't brought anybody in to really increase that. Kevin Love's getting another year older. Duncan Robinson only played 42 games last year. Bam Adebayo, you think he's got another leap? I think Bam is pretty much who he is. I think he can get a little better. It wouldn't shock me. But I don't think he's going to get much better. That's how I'm playing this card, and I like where I got him here.
I like where you got him too, man. I personally didn't go that bold, but I came close.
And this is with me believing in Spo being a top 3 coach in the league, maybe the best coach. I think he should replace Kerr immediately for head of USA basketball.
USA, yeah. Listen, I hear you, man. I can't say I can't. I have a Butler of that same jersey. I really like the Miami Heat's shtick of coasting through the regular season and then Heat culturing their way to the finals. It's hilarious that it works every time. Really the rest of the league has got to catch up, right? Like it's working. You can't knock it. Here's the thing. How tired would you be of that song and dance? I think Jimmy
Jimmy's
Butler,
got to be pissed.
Jimmy's got to be pissed. He's got to be coming out with the vengeance. I think we get another season from him where he kind of coasts through that regular season so that he's good to go for the playoffs. And it becomes that chicken and egg of, do you want the on-court reps with your teammates, or do you want to be 100% ready to go for the playoffs? For me, I've got Miami a couple ticks up, but I'm certainly not super high on them. Did not give them a guaranteed playoff spot. My number 9 squad is Indiana. So I've got Indiana at 9 personally to kind of, keep this going. I do think Jarris Walker can be good in year 1 at certain things. It depends on how much offensive responsibility he gets. He has the touch, but he won't be super efficient. He is a little contact averse despite his size and stature. But between Halliburton and the other guys on the roster, and the fact that Carlisle is the coach and Carlisle knows how to get the most out of the Halliburton archetype, you see when Halliburton's out, Nembhard has freaking 30 points and 10 assists, because that's just what Carlisle does, is he gets the most out of those lead guards. Yeah, I see them being fun, feisty, and fine. I think that Indiana is a team that when it gets to the play-in will probably not even get a playoff spot. If they do get a playoff spot, expect them to be dealt with very swiftly in the first round. Okay. On the flip side of that same coin, I do think they'll be a really fun regular season team that is very feisty and is a fine squad, is the 9 seed in the East. 39 wins, right? 39 wins. Is that fair? I think that they'll be decent. I think they've got a little team. I think Obi Toppin has a good season for them. I think he has a good season playing alongside Halliburton. Mathurin is good. Everything he did last season was a big product of just his athleticism. And yes, he has a lot to add in terms of the dimensions of the game that aren't just scoring. But he's already kind of got scoring down from an easy bucket standpoint, and that's a lot more than a lot of rookies can say after their first season. So I like Indiana. I'm not high on Indiana. I'm not in on Indiana. I think they meet the 3 Fs though. They will be productively mediocre this season, and that's how to not get stuck in purgatory. But yeah, I've got them at the 9 seed.
Who on Indiana makes it more fun than Brooklyn to you?
Jarris, Obi, even though I'm not
That's enough said. Enough said. That's
even though
fair.
I'm not a Halliburton guy, I do
Wow,
like
we got that.
I do like his funkiness. So
I think he's
yeah,
fun.
nah, he's all right.
I love it. I will say Indiana, like their ceiling to me, they could get as high as 6 or 7. Same with the Miami Heat. Like that's not saying much for Miami, but like I think Miami's ceiling is 6 or 7. My number 9, this is banking on they don't blow it all up halfway through the year, which they could very much finish in the bottom 3, and that's the
I want
Chicago
to.
Bulls at number 9.
Oh, I thought you were
Um,
gonna go Toronto.
there's another good blow it up option. That's very possible, but I believe in Toronto's upside a little more.
Sure,
I
sure.
think Chicago could finish even higher. I think Chicago's ceiling here is honestly like a 4 or 5 seed. As everybody clicks, another year playing together, I think that chemistry matters. Okay. And these guys, I do think they like each other. Zach LaVine's not out demanding a trade by any means. I think he likes playing with DeMar DeRozan, but I don't think they love it. I mean, nobody loves winning below 500. I mean, they're 40 and 42, and both these guys, they're playing hard, but not playing hard enough both ways, what have you. But I do think like guys like Io, I think Kobe White, I think those guys can still keep improving. I think they have enough guys to get them safely to this 9 seed. Caruso playing a lot more games. Patrick Williams. There's a lot of untapped here that I think that would help propel these guys. And I think they don't fit terribly. They got a lot of intelligent players. It's defense that would hold them from getting any higher here. That's my take on it. I'm not a huge Billy Donovan guy, but
No, me neither.
I definitely think we're going to get another great DeMar Zach LaVine year out of those two, and hopefully defense improves quite a bit. Being Caruso healthy all year.
Yeah, Chicago's not bad. I just don't think they're good. And when that team was assembled, the storyline was they're going to be the most fun team to watch in the NBA, whether they're good or not. And people
You
thought
always
they'd
say
be
that.
people thought
Yeah.
they'd be really good. Oh, because they're not fun, man. They stink. So when people disappointment only appears where expectations were. And people made up a lot of expectations for this team.
Holy crap. I just found out they were ranked number 6 defense last year. All year. That's mind-blowing. That's the one thing that slipped through my cracks all year. I will say there's really not much with the NBA that surprised me a ton. That might be the most shocking. And for them to finish 40-42 while their offense was trash.
Yeah.
Because there's so much ISO ball.
Terrible. So, yeah, listen,
there we go.
They're not a team that excites me. They're not a team that I think is headed in the right direction. However, that doesn't mean that they have to be bad. So I think Chicago's all right. That's why they're 10. I got Indy at 9. I want to keep things moving here, man. I want to get into our top 8s. At number 8, I have the Toronto Raptors. And I have the Toronto Raptors here kind of as a hedge, right? If they move Siakam or Anunoby during the season, I still think they could finish around 10th. So, the thing for me with Toronto is you get Dennis Schroeder. You don't have a lot of shooting. You have Gary Trent Jr. and Grady Dick for shooting. They're both coming off the bench. Right? None of this stuff adds up to me, but Siakam is a really good player. Anunoby is a really good player. Schroeder, to me, is tough. You take a look at Toronto, you think feisty, you think consistently good, you think good at drafting, winning organization. And that's why I do think they float up here to the 8th spot, despite maybe, storyline wise being a team that could be totally fine if I put them in 11th. If I put Toronto 13th, because I said my big prediction is they stink to start the year and they trade off Anunoby and they turn into a team that rests Siakam every night, then okay, that's what we're doing, I guess. But I'm not going to predict that. I'm going to predict that they continue to ride this mediocrity missile into the sunset that they've been on for the last couple of years, pretending like they're positioning for a big star move and just holding on, clutching their pearls and not improving in the meanwhile, right? If you don't have to make the move for the big star at all. If you keep getting better, if you keep improving, if you keep setting new benchmarks for yourself, feels like the Raptors have been stuck on the same part of the escalator for a couple years. And they're like, hey guys, no, we're on our way up. We're going up. You just don't get it. You don't see it. You don't understand why we traded Jakob Poeltl and then traded for him back and then extended him. But then now want to sell off Siakam despite buying a center at the trade deadline. No, you just don't get it. Masai knows, no, we're on our way up. And like, you're watching them walk down the escalator that's going up and they're just staying in the same place. No, we're headed the right way. Trust me.
Love it.
Sometimes you just got to let people do that and let them go until they get tired and realize they got to either go up or go down. They tried to go up, right? We talked to Michael Grange about the Toronto Raptors and we'll get that episode out. He gave us some scoops about their Lillard involvement and their point guard situation in general. But I'm just not big on this team as being one of the top powers in the Eastern Conference. I just think Siakam's really good. Anunoby's really good. Schroeder's pretty good. They have enough talent to coast up above teams that I'm not in on organizationally, fit-wise, you name it. So, yeah, I don't love the fit in Toronto. I do like it more than some of these other teams, and they have the talent where I've got to give them a nod. Who you got at 8?
Absolutely love that. That's completely probably a perfect spot for the Raptors, but I got them a tad higher. So number 8, this is my big leap. So my big drop was the Miami Heat. My big leap was the Orlando Magic at number 8. I think Paolo takes his massive leap, becomes an all-star this year. I think Wendell keeps getting better. I think Franz even gets a little better. And I'm not even the biggest Franz guy at all. I think he's very solid and going to be a long-time starter. Whoever, I think it was Kevin Clark and Zach Lowe, both guaranteeing 3-time All-Star appearances for Franz Wagner. I'm not there. I'll guarantee maybe 1. And that's a stretch for me. But gun to my head, I would say he makes 1. But he only makes it because Paulo is going to be so good and they're going to win a lot of games. And I think they got good things going there. And his talent's going to be close enough. But we touched on Orlando earlier. I don't have a whole lot more to say. I will say my number 7 is the Toronto Raptors. And we touched on them in a large pod with Michael. A lot of scoops there. Great on the Dame trade. Good draft stuff, preseason, you name it. And really fun episode. We went deep and they'll be coming out this week. Only thing I'd say is it all depends on Scotty Barnes. I don't think this team can get any higher than 5, but I think they could even drop below 7 here. I think they could go, I don't know, down to like 11, and it wouldn't shock me. We could see Pascal, OG, and Gary Trent all go out the door. I think Gary Trent could really rev the internal engine up the wrong way by not liking coming off the bench. I think he's that type of dude, and I think he's really important there. I think they need his shooting. They have only a couple stroke artists there, and he's one of them. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. Scotty's the only guy I think that can take a massive leap. Pascal, I mean, I think if he puts up numbers like last year and they're the 6th seed, he's a for sure all-star, maybe all NBA again. Who do you got at 7?
For 7, man, this is where I've got the Miami Heat. So I do agree with you that, just because this is a team that just went to the NBA Finals, this is not a team that I've got in the top 4 of its conference, or the top 5 or the top 6. But the thing for me with Miami is that this is intentional. I know it's intentional. And so my breakdown is going to be really quick. Come playoff time, I'm going to have Miami as more dangerous than at minimum, 2 of the teams out of the 6 that I have above Miami. So if this is a real power ranking, I'd have Miami top 5 in the East. Don't fret. Heat fans, don't yell at me. I just know that y'all like to treat the regular season like a California wave and just surf right through it and just not care. So I gotta acknowledge that too, man. And Miami's not a team that concerns itself very much with winning in the regular season. Just got to get in the playoffs. They don't care about home court and none of that. That's okay, right? Do you? It's working almost a lot. Just don't expect me to respect you in the regular season on the back end. Don't expect me to put you up there in the top 3, 4, 5 when you haven't shown consistently that that's a spot you should be in. Maybe they do care this year. Maybe they come out. Maybe Jimmy's emo look makes him care more than last year's, right? I don't know. Just to me, this is not a team that you want to be losing money on betting on their regular season success. So I've got Miami at 7, despite thinking that they're a top 5 team in the East. I think it's that simple.
Beautiful. So number 6 for me, these guys, this is the James Harden drop. They go from 3 to 6 solely on losing James Harden and the talent gap there. They could finish probably as high as 3 or 4. I'd say that's their ceiling here. The only way they finish higher than that is if Embiid plays 75 plus games, and I don't know anybody out there who's gonna bank on that ever. That'd be a really terrible bet. But I actually like what they did this offseason, shoring up their depth. Patrick Beverly, Kelly Oubre. I mean, I liked it if James Harden was going to stick around. I mean, do I like it to get past the first round this year? Not necessarily. I'm pretty low on the Sixers overall. And I just think this team now is all about Tyrese Maxey. I mean, we know what Joel Embiid can do in the regular season. It's what can he do in the postseason? I would honestly find a way. I mean, if you're winning a bunch of games, I would try to get to the 8th seed and make sure he's fully healthy before I try to get to the 6th seed or the 4th seed and beat his entire body all the way getting there. That's for sure. I think Tobias is going to have a huge year, being it's a contract year for him. I think Tyrese Maxey could end up being an all-star this year. That's I'd give it honestly about a 30% chance happening. I think he's for sure going to make an all-star appearance in his career. I just don't know if it's going to be this year. And I'm a huge D'Anthony Melton guy. People forget he's only played 5 years in this league. He's had some big performances in the preseason, and I expect him to keep rolling coming up. Kelly Oubre is also on a small contract, so he wants to prove himself. They got depth. I don't buy their upside, but I believe they're going to be in a lot of games and they can beat a lot of good teams.
Let me start right here, man. 30% implies about plus 235 on the betting lines. You're telling me right now you would take Tyrese Maxey to make the All-Star game this season at plus 235?
At plus I mean, I probably wouldn't put a lot on that, but at plus 300, I would.
Okay. Well, that's a little
Yeah,
different than
I
30.
think he
Okay.
could
Okay.
average. I think he could average 25-ish this year.
Um, okay. I will say that if you want to say plus 300, well, that implies about a 25% chance, which, okay, a little more reasonable.
There we go. Put me to 25.
I would say I would need a plus 400 at a 20% chance to bet on that to even think about it. But
That's banking on Embiid's health mainly. That's
yeah,
no matter
I
how
get
good
it.
Tyrese Maxey is. Like, look at Tyrese Halliburton. I didn't think he should have made the All-Star game last year because he was missing a bunch of games. But
Yeah, and his team wasn't successful, but he had a lot
right,
of assists per game, so he needed the nod. Apparently, I didn't think he should have been an all-star either, but that's besides the point. I don't want to be
right,
labeled as a hater.
right.
Listen, man, Philadelphia is a team that I have at 6 as well, so I will
Ooh,
get right into this discussion with you. I like Tobias Harris. I think he's a good player. I like Tyrese Maxey. I think he's a pretty good player. Pretty good supposed to mean a little better than just good. They had impressive depth to me last season. I liked the adding McDaniels midseason. I liked that move. Melton, like this stuff was all working for me. Now my problem with Philly,
McDaniels didn't do anything though.
yeah, but I'm talking about on paper. I'm talking about process. I'm
I
talking
loved it on
about
paper too.
yeah, exactly. Okay, so I'm just talking about like looking at the roster now. Kelly Oubre Jr., Paul Reed, or Philip Petrusev, or um, Montrezl Harrell as the backup 5. None of this.
You're naming guys that won't play again.
I know. I'm saying so. So Harrell's the backup 5?
Mo Bamba, bro, and I love Mo Bamba. I think he was good
Not good.
last year at
Nope,
Spurs.
not good. Okay, so he's not. He's not good. Let's start there. I think he's a player who could start if you're trying to be a losing team. I just when I talk about he's not a starter or he's not a backup, I mean that in regards to a team trying to go into a playoff series as the favorite. If you're trying to go into a playoff series in the first
Right,
round and be favored to come out of it, you can't have a backup 5 that is maybe not an NBA player. And maybe that's harsh, right? But with where he is today, I don't see him being worth the backup 5 spot on the team that's trying to, you know, um, that's trying to win today. Uh, Danny
if
Green.
I named his per 36 numbers, you'd say he's an all-star.
Don't even.
No, that's
Jaden
right. Fair.
Springer is the one
He's the
guy.
perfect example for that.
Jaden Springer is the one young guy that I look at in Philly and I go, they've got something. I didn't love the Azuelas Tubelis pick. I didn't love the Turk Smith pick. Javante Smart is not someone who, I know he's 24, but he doesn't get the people going. This is a team that to me is going to struggle night in, night out for motivation. They don't have a lot of young and hungry guys.
Maxey's about as hungry as they get, though.
And he's been screwed with his situation since coming into the league with Harden, with Embiid, with all this trade noise. I think this is a team that struggles to keep itself motivated. I think when they're not coasting by on talent, that they're going to have trouble winning games. I don't think they're going to be receptive to Nurse's style of coaching.
Ooh, oh, there's a take.
So, you swap out Rivers for Nurse, bring in Thibodeau next. What's going to change? You bring in these tough guys. They're not getting to your team. Either your team's not built to get gotten through to, like how Thibodeau couldn't get through to Karl Anthony Towns because Towns said Tibbs liked basketball too much, or then your team isn't worth getting through to. And because if they can't get gotten through to if they're not coachable, wow, that was a crazy grammatical whirlwind. If they can't get gotten through to, someone take my mic away. Take my mic away. Listen, man, this is a team that I think is going to be like, hey, they're playing Orlando tonight and Embiid's out, but Maxey and Tobias have got this, right? Like surely they've got this. And then they're down like 92-77 with the fourth quarter winding down. And you're like, wow, the Magic really just played good defense and won the game. Damn. Okay. Next night we move on. And then, Philly finishes with 44 wins or 43 wins as an unimpressive 6 seed. And we're all supposed to be like, whoopee. Yeah, I just can't. I can't buy it. So I think this is a team that will underachieve because I think the expectations are too high. I think people are expecting too much unfairly of a team dealing with a lot of trade drama right now. It's not good for a locker room. It's not good for nightly motivation. That's a theme I'm hitting on a lot when trying to think of regular season wins. You talk about me covering games, something I ask players that are veterans all the time is, what do you teach the young guys on the team about getting through the grind of a full regular season, whether it's 160 plus MLB games or 80 plus NBA games or 17 NFL games? Like, the regular season is a long and it's a grind. So can Philly get through that? Will they survive the Nick Nurse coaching style? Will they stay motivated? I don't want to say so. I do think they have a lot of talent. I think they'll coast by on it for a little. That's why they're my 6th seed.
So real quick on that, last year they were known for their comebacks, and I agree. I don't think they're gonna have the mentality this year for those comebacks. However, I do feel that the talent is there. The expectations are way too high because you got the MVP. That's just natural, and people are expecting way too much out of Tyrese Maxey and still Tobias Harris out of guy with a huge contract, and they hold him to that almost. But like they see all these veterans too, like PJ Tucker, Patrick Beverly, and they expect so much out of all these guys coming together, what have you. But the Nick Nurse thing is a real thing. I'm probably the biggest Nick Nurse guy there is. I love him. You make a good point. Like, team wise, is this a Nick Nurse type of team that's going to listen? I listened to almost every presser so far in this preseason, like from the players. Because I want to know the vibes of this Philly team because it's such an interesting situation, and it seems like they love them, and it's gone absolutely amazing. But until the last couple of days with Harden, so it's going to be interesting how that propels them rolling into the season here. But I will say Nick Nurse does not like using depth, and they need to learn how to use their depth. That was a Doc problem last year, and why they didn't. I mean, if they would have used Paul Reed earlier in the season, simple as that, they probably would have got past the Celtics. Just stuff like that. Nick Nurse, that's always been an issue of him. He likes doing the Thibodeau way as well, laying on the stars and the better players more minutes. You need to get Kelly Oubre to be good early in the regular season. You need Patrick Beverly to be full madness all on. But that's all I'm going to say for the Sixers. Number 5, who do you get?
It's tough, man, but I really did inch out the Atlanta Hawks at number 5 over the
Me and you
Philadelphia
both.
76ers. The reason being, I was very low on the DeJounte Trey pairing when it was put together. I actually do think that, for what it's worth, the team has done a better job of building towards that pairing. Trae Young, whether it's created in his own head or whatever this storyline is, that because he signed with Adidas, he didn't get chosen for Team USA. Walker Kessler is like not signed with Nike and got chosen, and he's not some standout superstar. So pretty sure it was never that deep, Trey. Anyway, politics are holding him out of Team USA, or it's the fact that they wanted one point guard who can't defend, so they picked Brunson. I think it's that simple. Trey knows that. He knows why he didn't make it. He knows this stuff. He can go out and agree that it's a conspiracy or a plot against him by Nike or whatever. But at the end of the day, I think he wants to get better on defense. You know how? Because he's shown it in the preseason. He's shown that aggressiveness. And I tell you, 51% of defense is effort, and he's shown that effort. So
good shout out.
For me, I want to say that the Atlanta Hawks are not going to be some top flight team to fear. They're not going to be a team that, the top of the Western or Eastern Conference struggles to handle. I think Boston and Milwaukee will deal with them swiftly if it comes to it playoff time. However, this is going to be a team that is not just feisty and fun, but feisty and good. And I do think that a full season of Snyder is going to do them really well. I do think that Trae Young taking this little step forward in regards to all the other aspects of his game besides scoring and playmaking. He was running like a madman off the ball in preseason. He's defending.
Damn. I love it, dude.
I see
I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm going to be looking for it immediately.
I see him making changes to his game that a lot of guys get told they need to make, and they go, what do these fans know? What do these analysts know? What do these beat writers know? I play my game. I do me. I'm real good. Trae Young said, I know I'm real good. Watch me get better. And I have to respect that. And so I'm going to go with the Atlanta Hawks at number 5 here over the Philadelphia 76ers.
I love that. And we matched up at 5 here. You were making my hairs perk up a little bit. If Trae Young,
Woo!
arguably one of the worst defenders in the league, can become any sort of
He just
average
yeah, I was gonna
defender,
say just bad. What about just
just
bad? What if he's
get
bad at
to
defense? That's a
even
big step forward.
Bradley Beal defensive levels, he could get up to being a top 10 player that some people actually think he is. That's all it would take from Trae Young. Just being serviceable on that end. But you look at all the teams he had in Utah, call me insane, but I truly think this team on paper is better than all of them. Maybe not like factually yet player wise, but like upside and talent level. I think some of these guys still need to be developed, but I truly believe that it's there on paper right now. With that said, Sadiq Bey only played 25 games last year. I think the chemistry and cohesion is going to pick up quite a bit. AJ Griffin, just another year. I think he's going to become really, really important to this team. I think this team fits very well, almost perfectly, from top to bottom. I'm all in on this team as being as high as a 3 seed. I think they can make a conference finals run. It's just the only teams that really scare me for this team is Boston and Milwaukee. That's about it. But every other team, I would almost have these guys favored in the playoffs. Cleveland, yes, I mean that's a tough matchup as well. I think that would be about as exciting as it gets. I would love to see that matchup. DeJounte Murray, I need to see him level up. I like last year, he was very clutch. Okay. I loved him in fourth quarters.
I hated the evaluation of him on the Spurs. I hated the trade package they gave up for him.
See, I didn't mind it.
His calling card is his defense, and I've always found him to be an overrated defender. So where does that leave me? But in my opinion, again, that embarrassment on a national stage is where you take that step.
Yeah, he was definitely overrated as a defender last year. There's no denying it, but I do believe in his defense, and I do believe that's why he's the perfect fit next to Trae. I think he's a very smart and feisty player. He'll be the feisty word I use in the Atlanta Hawks, but I think Onyeka can take another leap. I think the growth of this team is really going to depend on that. Quinn, though, he's the X factor of this team. I just think another year with Quinn should do these guys levels. They could win 50 games and it wouldn't shock me at all. So number 4, move to there. I'll be shocked if actually, no, I wouldn't. I mean, 3 and 4 could be intertwined here, but number 4, I got the Knicks. I just think they're just rock solid. They know how to play together. Not much is changing other than minutes between a couple players. And I think guys are just going to be more polished in their roles, more polished. And RJ Barrett's, like I said on the Knicks show, is the one guy I think that could make, like, I'm going to word this, try to be very carefully, that could make a leap significant enough to make the team much, much better. Like, yes, a lot of guys can get better. Absolutely. But I think he's the one player that has a huge gap I actually kind of see that could make the team a lot better immediately.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. I get it. I get it. I think that there's a lot of, hey, since December 4th, when the Knicks changed their rotation, they were a 53 win pace team. I think there's a lot of, hey, when they got Josh Harton on, they were a 58 win pace team. That people are like, oh, of course you just apply that to the course of a full season and the math works out. I'm not there. However, I'm also a little not there with you in regards to the fact that I have Cleveland at number 4. So I have the Cleveland Cavaliers at number 4. Why? In an offseason where so many people are hyping up the Cleveland Cavaliers as a dark horse 1 seed, do I have them as the 4 seed? Let me tell you 2 things, Zach. Here's thing number 1. In the last 18 games of Cleveland's season last year, there were 2 out of those 18 games in which both of the following categories were true. The opponent was over 500. The game was on the road. I'm going to say that again, both for you and the listeners at home. Cleveland played 82 regular season games last year. In their final 18, Only 2 of those games qualified as being both against a team over 500 and a road game. Cleveland, if they were playing a good team, they were at home. If they were playing on the road, it was a bad team. They had a really, really easy peasy end of season schedule. And it's why I said during last season that they'd finish ahead of the New York Knicks and that the Knicks wouldn't go on some run to finish in the 4th seed and get home court advantage. I knew it would be the Cleveland
Do you know their
Cavaliers.
record towards the end of the season? Like, was it a huge surge at the end of the year
Yes.
compared to the rest?
The Knicks were ahead of them in the standings, and that they ended up getting home court advantage in that series because they finished out the year so strong. If you want to look to
They did finish 4 games ahead, but
yeah, that's the thing. It was the last 18 games that were such a big deal. So you look to before the playoffs, they lost to the Hornets, all right, but then they beat the Magic, they beat the Pacers at home, lost at home to the Knicks, lost on the road to the Hawks. They won against the Rockets, the Nets, the Wizards, the Hornets, they beat the Pistons at the end of the season. They beat the Raptors at the end of the season. It was a lot of games, a lot of wins at the end of the year that came against weaker squads, Zach. And so that's my first reason as to why, despite everyone buying Cleveland as a number 1 seed, I'm not as in on them continuing that momentum into this next season. The second reason is more storyline oriented. And I know I like to keep it on the court, but this episode, I have made a really big point of day-to-day, game-to-game motivation. And I got to tell you, Donovan Mitchell's free agency in 2025 is getting closer and closer every day. Every day we are one day closer to Donovan Mitchell being a free agent. And I understand from the consensus of NBA Twitter that probably nobody thinks he's extending in Cleveland, except for the biggest Cleveland fans or
right.
the biggest believers of player loyalty, whether it's Mitchell or anyone. I don't think anyone's very confident that he's staying in Cleveland. I personally think he's more likely to walk for Brooklyn than he is to walk for the Knicks. I think McCall is someone he would love to team up with. I think Brooklyn has something going on that he would love to be a part of. And I think ultimately he does look at the Knicks and he sees Brunson with the majority of the ball handling responsibility, sees opportunity for himself in Brooklyn to be the number 1 unquestioned lead ball handler. I think he likes what he sees. So I would say Brooklyn is more of a threat than New York to land him in free agency. But at the end of the day, it's the fact that we're having these conversations that is the cause for this all. I do think the team will be worried throughout the season that he's going to leave. I do think that affects their game-to-game motivation. I do think when you're going into a game thinking, oh, I hope my teammate extends past this year or else we might really stink. We'll show him we'll be good. You know what? I'm going to go out tonight and get up 14 shots and show Don that we're going to be good without him. You start creating these storylines in your head that aren't real. And you need to make the most of the season, the last season you have with him, especially because of what you gave up for him. You need to be ready to go contend. And they're not. So I'm going to buy this to not fall apart, but just not hold sturdy enough to be a 1 seed over Milwaukee or Boston, which I think is crazy that people are suggesting. So I'm not in with that. I do get it, but you're really counting on a Mobley leap that I'm not sure Mobley has it in him to make happen. I said last playoffs, that guy needs 2 years and 25 pounds. We are 1 year away and about 20 pounds away from that. So I've got Cleveland at 4. What about you, man?
Yeah. So I said New York
New
at
York at
4.
4. So I would guess
Cleveland is definitely at 3 for me.
Okay, there we go. That's what I was asking, like where you got Cleveland.
Yeah. So my tier 2 though is basically Cleveland at 3 to the Sixers at 6. And I think those teams are all really close for the regular season wise. And like I said, I have 4 or 5 tiers throughout the Eastern Conference. I will say the Knicks, though, I mean, they were relatively healthy compared to most teams outside of Mitchell Robinson. And I do think that guy matters for winning. So he only played 59 games. Brunson only played 68. Those games hopefully both go up. And that's how this team flirts with a 50-win season. I mean, you could arguably say those are the 2 most important players on the team, and that matters quite a bit. So their upside from 47 is there. I do see a very clear path to that. The Knicks just got so much better in the offseason, like depth-wise. Max Strus and who else they pick up? One other guy I really liked. I'm blanking on right now. I'm looking it up, though, but a full year of Mitchell, Garland together is so needed. Garland missed a lot of games last year, and I just think those guys are gonna have one of the most fun backcourts.
N-
I take
Uh,
that back. They played a lot of
Niang,
games together. They
Niang or
played.
Jerome?
I liked Niang,
But
but
who's the one you couldn't remember? Was it Ty Jerome or no
it
way,
was
right?
definitely it was Niang, I
It was
guess.
Niang. Okay, there you go.
Yeah. And he matters. I mean, 3-point shooting just gives him more depth, but he's not too epic. I'm not going to say that by any means, but Max Struth is a really big one. And I thought this team was already depth. Oh, Emily Bates. I think he could matter, and they've talked very highly
As a
about
rookie,
him right away. He's a guy that has a skill set I could see making a difference by
I
just
can see
spotting
him
up and shooting.
sticking. I can see him sticking in the
Um,
league. I don't know if he plays as a rookie, man.
I hope he does. I think shooting is how these guys are going to win a lot of games. I think they're just going to outshoot a lot of teams, and they're elite defensively as well. So I think they have just about everything besides uh, perimeter defense. But they do have pieces that can play it. It's just removing the two guys that you need to be out there on the perimeter. So it's a lot of creativity is gonna how you get to that perimeter defense and what have you. But I really like this team. I think depending, it all comes down to Evan Mobley on how high their ceiling is as a team. But I mean, it's conference finals ceiling for me. I mean, if Evan Mobley develops, if Isaac Okoro, we can get a little more out of him. I mean, this team could have a championship roster. I truly believe that. But that's if they can guard Giannis at whatsoever. That's what it's going to come down to me. I think this team can beat Boston. But I mean, that's them peaking and Evan Mobley taking a leap that I'm with you. I do believe it's there in Evan Mobley. I don't necessarily believe with Donovan Mitchell on the roster that's bound to happen because he needs more usage for it to happen. And I don't think he's getting that usage this year. So who's your number three?
I've got the New York Knicks at number 3. Like I
Right,
told
right.
you, I'm
Okay.
not super in on the storyline that you just take 58 win total that pace and you just apply it to their full season and say that's going to be their win total. New York is due for someone, unfortunately maybe missing some games or they've had pretty good injury luck recently, and I know it's sports, a lot of it is luck, right? So you think things might happen where someone misses a couple games, maybe nothing serious, but New York is already, the reason I bring this up is because they're a 9-man rotation where Josh Hart's the backup 4. It's a matter of not having a whole lot of front court depth that they trust with big playoff minutes. Jericho Sims is someone they really like internally. Thibodeau likes him, but I don't think that's someone they want playing the backup 5 in the playoffs, or especially not the 4. And basically, I just think that the team is going to be good. The team is going to go out and do what it takes to win regular season games against the majority of opponents. I have this Knicks team marked for about 49, 50 wins flat. Um, and that's where I think they're going to be. I think these next two teams are several wins better than them. I think the Cavaliers are right there around them. I think the Hawks will be high 40s as well. I just have the Knicks edging out the Cavs and Hawks by just a win or two each. And the reason for that being the continuity, the sustainability, and the momentum they have. I think something with the Knicks that's a little different than teams like Cleveland or Atlanta. Cleveland and Atlanta, they each doled out 3 first-round picks for a guard that in his time with them thus far has underperformed. Is that fair? Donovan Mitchell, first team All NBA, had a great regular season, right? And then
Yeah, he
what happened?
underperformed in the playoffs
Then
for
what
sure. It was
happened?
disappointing.
He's known as a playoff riser, and he dropped. That's brutal. It's also going to happen to guys, right? That's okay. We don't need to write off Mitchell's career because of it or anything. I just think there's so much pressure in Cleveland and Atlanta for those teams to be good. And with the Knicks, it's kind of like, hey, we should be good. And if we're not, we have so many assets to go get Joel Embiid. It's just, I think that having that parachute is comforting to them. Um, I have heard that Embiid would be interested in playing for the New York Knicks. I don't think it's something that is totally out of the window or out of left field here. Sorry, Astros fans, for making you think about baseball again tonight, but basically, I don't think it would be out of left field. I just think that the Knicks are in a position now where these last couple seasons, I've described them as house money going into the year, and it's because they are. And the Knicks keep getting better. They keep doing what it takes to make the next year also be house money. I'm in on this Knicks team. I'm in on what they're building. I'm in on them organizationally. I'm in on the fit on the court. And I just don't think they have the talent to be a 1 or 2 seed in this Eastern Conference. But that's okay. I've got them as the 3 seed. And the reason I have them over teams like Cleveland and Atlanta is because they've shown that they're better than these teams. They just beat Cleveland in the first round of the playoffs for the second year straight. Donovan Mitchell got sent home in the first round of the playoffs by Jalen Brunson. For the first year, Jalen Brunson did it as a number 1 option. And for the second year straight, consensus rankings have Mitchell far over Brunson. So the Knicks have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder too. No matter how much they win, they don't seem to get that respect up front. They need to earn it on the back end. I think that they're a good bet to go do that, especially with a coach like Thibodeau.
Love it. So number 2 and number 1 for me, tier of their own. Super tough debate. Coming down to it. For me, I mean, came down to thinking about depth. I leaned towards Milwaukee's depth. I looked at games played last year. I looked at all these variables, and I don't know. My instincts just went to Jaylen Brown missing about the same amount of games. Giannis missed. All these other things played out. They were 1 game apart last year. Tatum and Giannis are both MVP candidates. They'll both have a great shot at winning it this year, in my opinion. My thing is, if Giannis is out, I think the Bucks are worse than if Jason Tatum's out. I think the Celtics are a better team. Take those 2 teams off them. So that's a big part of my rationale there. But for me, the main reason why I'm going Bucks at 2, Celtics at 1 is because the coaches. And I trust Joe Mazzulla in year 2. I mean, to win very close to the same amount of games he won last year at 57 with a better team than he had last year, in my opinion. A more talented team. As long as they got 2 of the big 4 out there and you can put Derek White and make it a big 5, what have you. As long as they got 2 of those guys, they should be able to beat any team any night, in my opinion, in the regular season, that is. Milwaukee, I mean, it comes down to Giannis being healthy. It really does, in my opinion, for them to win a lot of games. And I just don't necessarily believe in this head coach yet, Adrian Griffin. Time will tell. But I think they're going to be amazing. I mean, talent exceeds the fit. I think these 2 teams are going to be battling for everything for the next couple of years. It's going to be a lot of fun. Where are you at on 1 and 2?
So I agree with you, man. I've got Boston 1, Milwaukee 2. This is something I danced with for a while in my head. I really wanted to put Milwaukee 1 and Boston 2 because that's how I think I see it when it comes playoff time.
Same.
However, despite the fact that I do not buy Mazzulla as a head coach, I am not in on him. I don't like him as the head coach of the Celtics team. Okay? Let's start there. Despite that fact, and that's part of why I'm lower on them come playoff time than a team like Milwaukee. Despite that fact, the continuity, it's there for me. There's something to knowing the ins and outs of a coach and how he works and not needing to adjust. Damian Lillard is going to be adjusting not only to a new coach, but a new city. Listen, you want to talk about him being a pro's pro and yada, yada. Sure. Great. He's been in Portland for a very long time. I'm confident that there are going to be some things for him to adjust to. That's just how it works. I also think that Boston's depth screams regular season monster. Sam Hauser is going to be going off for like 17 points on games against teams like the Knicks that have trouble with leaving guys open in the corner because they always prefer to double the star. That's why Joe Ingles made 7 threes against the Knicks last season, but Giannis had a low impact game. And the Bucks won, right? But I just think, in situations like that, it's one thing. But in the playoffs, I don't trust guys like Hauser or O'Shea Brissett to make real impacts. Agreed. That's why I'm low on Boston's front court. I think they need buyout help, trade help, whatever it is. They need some of it. But in the regular season, it's going to go great and it's going to work great. And I buy their health and all. Like, I think they stay healthy all season. I just think it works out for them. I think come playoff time, something might happen where, okay, now after a full year of being healthy, Horford's left leg is flaring up like it used to,
Right.
from back to Philadelphia every January or February. Horford has a left knee problem. That's not his fault. He's 37 years old, man. The problem for me is that his backup is O'Shea Brissett, and Porzingis' backup is Luke Cornett. And these are not guys that I look at in a playoff series and I go, oh, yeah, they got this one in the bag tonight. So with all those questions, it's hard to have them as a unquestioned top flight team in the Eastern Conference. But they're the top team in the Eastern Conference. And the reason is because Drew Holiday playing out of the post and creating for Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown on the outside is going to go so well with Horford's smart passing, Porzingis' floor spacing. It's going to go really well. It's going to work really well for them. Derek White's going to win Sixth Man of the Year, and Joe Mazzulla will have a case for Coach of the Year, despite being maybe a bottom 5.
Stop it. How do you say that about a guy who's a rookie head coach and was a couple
His quotes this
baskets?
preseason have been beyond disheartening. I
will
can't
say,
begin to get into them right now. I just think that it is the talk of a man who's really hoping he has control over his locker room. And I think that the only coaches that have any control over their locker room are the ones that just act like they do. When you just act like you have control over locker room, it comes with that. Mazzulla's trying very hard to be like, hey, I'm the teacher here. I'm in charge, guys. Check out my flashcards. That got leaked on Quizlet to the entire NBA Twitter. Listen, man, I just think that he's not the best. I don't want to make this all about the coaching. I want to talk about how great of a basketball team Boston's going to be. I want to talk about how great of a basketball team Milwaukee's going to be. I think Adrian Griffin's going to have a really nice rookie head coaching year, you know? But my thing with Mazzulla is it's corny, but even Mike McDaniel has that leader of men aspect to him that I know is a little
I like the similarities
a little
but I
old
prefer Mike
fashioned.
McDaniel a lot.
I think it's an old fashioned view to be like, oh, you got to be a leader in the locker room. But McDaniel has that coolness about him. Mazzulla is anxious. Mazzulla is nervous. And I am afraid that with a team so good, he will regress into coaching scared. That's not something that's an option for this Boston team. I'm going to have Milwaukee as my team to win the East when it comes playoff time. And listen, that's just my prediction right now. If Boston goes out and looks how they need to look, I will change that accordingly. You trust me. I don't want to be wrong. I don't want to look like an idiot. I will change my prediction. You trust me. But for right now, I got Boston 1, Milwaukee 2, New York 3. Those and yeah.
We don't need to go down the rest.
Exactly.
Good conversation, man. I think the biggest disagreement, honestly, was where I had Orlando. That's probably the big thing that stuck out. And the bottom feeders.
I'm relying a little more on precedent in this list. And you're relying a little more on like what you think goes down, which I really like. I wish I had that confidence. I don't know that Orlando takes that leap in the win column this year. You know, they have to become a team that almost wins a lot of game first. So
I saw it with Phoenix. I saw it with Atlanta.
Good. I hope I'm wrong. I saw it with Phoenix too.
I'll tell you, I didn't necessarily see it with New York. So
I was Booker over Mitchell back then. Anyway, listen, man, the Eastern Conference is going to be one hell of a race to watch. I can't wait to continue to break this down with you and Albert throughout the course of the season, continuing to have great guests on the show, continuing to have great basketball discussion. I am so happy with the way we presented these rankings because I really feel like I understood every ranking you had. I understood where you were coming from. So I love this discussion. I love how it went. I'm so happy we got to sit and talk about this before the season started. To our listeners, we're sorry Al couldn't be here. When you're as famous as him, you have all sorts of other obligations. So Al busy tonight. Zach and I ready to talk some hoops and hopefully we scratched your guys' itch for some good hoops.
He literally hit 90% of his football bets this weekend. And thank you, Al. I appreciate that very dearly.
He is a special talent.
If you don't know, you got to get on him. So he had to recap his picks, and that's what he was late doing. But he'll be on hopefully for Western Conference.
Al's Twitter will be in the bio, in the description of this episode. Go follow Al at Analytics Capper. Go follow Zach. Go follow myself. But if you follow none of us, if you go unfollow all of us, I still ask that you rate the show 5 stars. You subscribe to the YouTube. You follow us on Apple or Spotify. You give us that 5-star rating. Leave a comment telling us why you like the show
Smash.
or what you don't like about it. But thumbs up this video. Subscribe to the channel if you're watching on YouTube. Just do your best to support the pod because we appreciate it so much. Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of All Things NBA. Al, Zach, and I will continue to keep you guys covered on everything going on around the association as long as you stay tuned in and to our constant stream of thoughts, our basketball analysis, and bad jokes. You name it. Peace out, everyone. See you next time.